finally, I got given God mode. So now I can introduce the poor guy that's been standing here on stage for 10 minutes. So yeah, next up we have Dave Pouliot, and he's going to give us a talk on Bitcoin meeting the real world. All yours, Dave.
Thanks.
Again.
Thanks. All right. Second try is it's the best. Okay. So thanks, Riccardo. Nice to see you guys, although I can't see you. So yeah, Bitcoin meeting the real world. So just a brief introduction on who I am. Most of you guys probably don't know me. So my name is Dave, the father of CoinMiles. I'm a lawyer in Montreal here in Canada. Also a former cop, so spent a few years, early stage in my career as a cop, and turned a Bitcoiner in 2015. I worked as a lawyer for a few years and then launched CoinMiles. So essentially what we do at CoinMiles is we're one of those companies who gives Bitcoin cashback when you shop online. So there's more and more of those companies, but more importantly, we also give you Bitcoin cashback and Bitcoin rewards when you shop in store. So that's pretty different what we're doing, and we're having a very different approach from what has been done so far in the market. So I think it's pretty interesting what we're discovering in this industry so far. So I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin adoption in the real world. What does that mean, and the kind of troubles we're seeing also from our side of the business here. So what is Bitcoin adoption? There's really two ways to look at it. It really depends on what you hope for, what does Bitcoin success means to you. So there's the traditional approach where, it's a reserve currency, permissionless, record. And if that's the vision you have, there's probably no need for a real customer adoption, right? Gold is not widely adopted. So at this point, it can remain a purely financial and tech play. And that would be good enough for Bitcoin to have a good use case. But that would also mean less infrastructure for end users. So if you ever wish to pay at your local grocery store with Bitcoin, that may not be the vision that will yield that result. And there's a retail-based view, which essentially builds on the fact that Bitcoin was made to empower people. So the objective is to allow anyone, and I mean anyone, including my grandmother, to interact with it as much as possible. And that's the vision we're trying to execute on at CoinMiles. And so, based on that retail view, I'll get a beer and some sats, please. That's essentially the reality we're trying to build for you guys. Is we want to give whoever uses us or whoever is interested in stacking Bitcoin the best opportunities and the easiest opportunities to get Bitcoin in whatever you do. So our internal motto is rewards that fits your lifestyle, and this is really what we're building on. So, but then we're facing the real world chasm, the good old adoption curve chasm. So most of you already know what this thing is. I'm not going to go in depth, but for those who may not know, essentially it divides the people into whether they're innovator, early adopters, early majority, or laggards. Laggards would be your uncle that would never get any form of Bitcoin for themselves. So we're not going to talk about late majority here and laggards. These guys are not here. They're not going to be here with us I guess, until a few years. But the early adopter and early majority is a very interesting population segment to be to talk about. So let's if we profile them from a very high level perspective. The early adopters would be mainly visionary. So they would project themselves as what they can be in the future with Bitcoin. Where the early majority, which would drive up the adoption rate of almost to 50%, would be mostly pragmatism. So people that will also want to see what they can be with Bitcoin, but also what they can do now. So they don't live in the future. They need something that they can use right here, right now. And we're going to see a little bit more what that means. And so a survey that was made last year in Canada, and it was made by the Payment Association, so a very credible entity up here, yielded a very interesting result. So 48% of the non-Bitcoin adopter essentially could be labeled as crypto curious. They said that they would be motivated to try Bitcoin if they could learn more about how to purchase and use it. So although they have never owned any form of Bitcoin before, they don't even have, most of them, the interest of buying Bitcoin in the next 12 months. They still said they would be open if they were guided somehow and or pushed, outside of the bird's nest. And going into another survey by the Tokenist, 43% of millennials feel that most people would be using Bitcoin within 10 years. That's not millennials, that's the general population. Sorry, millennials, I think it's over 50%. So we're mainly at 59%, if I remember correctly. So that is much, much higher than the early adopter range, which is 16%. So we're seeing this huge segment of the population that said like they would be super interested in getting Bitcoin for themselves, but they're not. And that begs the question, so why are they not having any form of Bitcoin? I mean, right now, where do they have to wait, say, for 10 years or so for a year before jumping aboard? And mainly there's three components we've isolated. So the first two we know, risk aversion, we know that some form of population, they're just gonna keep repeating that Bitcoin is risky, it may go up, it may go down, and just the fact that it may go down, this risk aversion trait is sufficient for most of them just to push this decision further. So risk aversion can be tackled pretty easily with those rewards program, Coin Miles, Fold, Lolly, all of those guys that you know already. So that can solve this thing. But then again, there's the complexity part, which is also getting better. Having better UI, better UX is super important. We're really taking another, I guess, if it's more complicated than logging onto Facebook, accessing your little Bitcoin, I mean, your $2, $3, $10 worth of Bitcoin, most of them will not join. So it has to be ridiculously simple for them, and it has to go into a standard that they already know. But the last one is maybe the most important one, and that's what we think is the key to adoption as in the next few years. That's social status and pressure. And that's something that the industry hasn't talked about it yet. I haven't read much stuff about what Bitcoin could bring you as a form of social status, and what kind of pressure can we build within the industry to really push someone to this adoption, not just wait and hope they're going to jump aboard, but really to create this sort of industry funnel to grab as many Bitcoin users as possible. So the question is how to raise Bitcoin's social status amongst yourself. And then I think we need to switch perspective from what Bitcoin can do versus what you can be with Bitcoin. So looking back into all of the major reward programs that you see out there, they don't sell you the cheap points that are virtually worth nothing that they give you. They sell you the vacation at the end of it. They sell you the fact that you're with friends having fun on the beach, or you're enjoying a nice meal at a restaurant. So that's what we need to project for that segment of population to be interested in Bitcoin. And of course, there's association with highly trusted brand personalities and the current positive experience among adoption. So essentially what I mean by current positive experience, I mean the fact that you don't know, you never heard about Bitcoin, so Bitcoin awareness up to the point where the Bitcoin rewards you by giving you whatever form of reward. It could be a reward, it could be just a passive investment. We need to get better at that, and we need to focus on that. And also normalization of Bitcoin as a feature. That's something we'd love to say. A lot of businesses have started in the past saying they were Bitcoin first, and although we really want to build on Bitcoin, we have Bitcoin as a vision. We're very proud to say we're Bitcoin's second kind of company. The first is always the user experience and the kind of integration we can do with the real world and real businesses. And of course, there's repetition and exposure. And so that sounds good, but it's a lot of work, especially knowing that Bitcoin has no true marketing team. However, the emerging Bitcoin tech company, the emerging Bitcoin tech company have perfectly aligned interests. I would even say, because the more Bitcoin adoption there would be, the more interesting those brands would be. And we are, as a reward company, purely volume based. I mean, the business model we are into is ridiculous if we don't get any sorts of major volume and major adoption, but it could get very interesting when there's a lot of volume at play. So this is a core of, I guess, our goal. We need some Bitcoin adoption. We need a lot of users, and by promoting our brands and ultimately surfing on that Bitcoin wave, we hope that will be, a positive factor for Bitcoin adoption. So Bitcoin adoption here would hopefully be an externality of the success of some of those reward companies as they grow. And I guess we're at the eve of seeing something very interesting in Montreal and in Canada, and hopefully in other cities as well. So we are creating as we speak, and we are going to start posting those stickers in famous restaurant here in Montreal and high-end brands as well. Bitcoin rewards. So the users will have no choice but to claim Bitcoin rewards when they go shop in store. They can pay the full price and get no rewards, or they can pay the full price and get some form of Bitcoin rewards. And that is something really unique we're building on, because there's a lot of brands we could partner in online. I mean, we already partnering with those Walmart, Nike, Adidas. All of those big brands have affiliate programs online that we can tap into. That's interesting, but that's not exclusive to us. But in this kind of environment, we're really talking about creating a coalition of businesses that solely solely give Bitcoin as a reward. And so far, it's a bit of an experiment. As even though we're a startup company, we hope it's going to go well. There's a lot of unknown, but we're seeing a lot of traction, and we're making hundreds of calls every day to merchants that some of them have never bought any Bitcoin in their life, and they're super interested in offering Bitcoin in their own. Could be a restaurant, could be activities, it could be any form of retail space. So that's super cool, and we're seeing like real tangible traction in the real world. And how it's going to work from our side, we essentially took the list down of whatever we thought was needed for Bitcoin adoption, and we've created it in-house, and we launched it as well. So it's risk-free, so you don't have to pay. You get Bitcoin cash back as a reward. So that's already interesting in itself. And we're talking about huge rewards, especially for those in-store purchases. You can sometimes get like 10%, 15% of the total bill, and that includes the taxes and tips. So you can go and get some $20, $25 back for just one single meal. That's super interesting from a user perspective. It's also very easy to do. So we're using card-linked offer, and to my knowledge, at least, we're the first one to be doing that. We just got the green light from Visa to deploy card-linked offer with Visa and MasterCard here in Canada. So the difference with card-linked offer versus open banking is that we need to trace a transaction to a user. And there's virtually two ways to do that. People transact in store using usually credit cards. So we can either hook into their bank account, see all of their transactions they've been doing, whether it relates to us or not, we don't care. But we didn't want to do that. We're not necessarily fan of open banking for privacy reasons. We chose the card-linked offer, and by card-linked offer, everything's tokenized. We don't see the credit card. We only see a token associated with a credit card. And then we only see the result of a transaction that was made by a linked card at a participating merchant. So all of the other transactions that essentially we don't care about, we don't get to see, and that's very good for us. And those rewards are exclusive, so it's Bitcoin or nothing, and they're also quite high end as well. So we're not only talking about onboarding cheap restaurants. Some of them are pretty interesting in terms of what they bring as a branding and as a reputation for themselves. So it's pretty cool. And the end goal here is to create micro hubs of Bitcoin offers all over. So there's a lot of work from the engineering community and the tech community by promoting VIPs and talking about security and improvements and stuff. But there's also a lot of Bitcoin users. Maybe the vast majority of them are not, techy enough to contribute positively to on the tech side, at least, to Bitcoin. And so we're providing an alternative to shilling Bitcoin on Twitter by really onboarding. We all know a cousin. We have a cousin, an uncle, a friend who either has a bar, a restaurant, could be a dentist. As soon as they essentially accept some form of credit cards in their businesses, if you refer them to CoinMiles, you could be helping the community by creating an offer that will in turn drive purchases for that merchant. So it's a good deal for them. It's also a good deal for Bitcoin adoption, and it helps, fostering the Bitcoin adoption as a whole. So there's a lot of things you guys can do to help us out. If you're interested, you can always feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to guide you through how we can work together. And I'll use the rest of my time. I think I have only a few minutes left to talk about what's next in my view in the Bitcoin space. So payment in Bitcoin is a big thing. It's been widely discussed. That's my personal opinion, and I may be entirely wrong on that. But I think that from the natural, I guess, basis of this idea is it's kind of misaligned with the reserve currency thesis, where Bitcoin is going to gain in value in the long term. So to really drive someone to spend their Bitcoin as a daily habit, I mean, unless that person chose to live off the financial grid and use Bitcoin as a way of life, there needs to be an irresistible incentive for someone to spend their Bitcoin. I would probably not be likely to spend my Bitcoins in store. I would try to gather as much as possible, but not spend them. And the same thing on the merchant side. There's kind of some form of uncertainty when it comes to holding a Bitcoin, capital gain, capital losses from a tax perspective, accounting. It complexifies. So unless it's super well integrated and there's a strong incentive on both sides, and there may be, I'm not saying there's not, there may be ways to do that. But I think unless we solve that very important, challenge, I don't expect to see a lot of Bitcoin payments for real world transactions. And of course, there's always going to be Bitcoin payment online for those who chose to. Bitcoin payment also would have to come with some form of escrow. So the reality is that if you order online in other formats than gift cards, if you do real transactions, I mean, there's tons of cases where you may not receive your item. There's going to be some fraud patterns. So I'm not saying that we need the same kind of escrow mechanism and chargeback mechanism that goes up to 120 days, just like Visa, MasterCard, or credit cards PCI association is required. But there's going to be need to have some form of customer protection, built around those kinds of transactions, because there will be some fraud, there will be some chargeback, either on the customer side or on the merchant side, that ultimately, if we hope to see a widespread adoption, we'll have to solve this as an industry. Travel segment could be an interesting one, whereas that could be a good case where you go and rather than converting your own fiat into another currency, paying the currency exchange fee, you can get some, discount as a traveler. And a lot of merchants are super interested in attracting customers, because they usually don't want to cannibalize their own local customer base. But as soon as it's attracting, foreign money, foreign tourists, that guy or that girl is going to go in your street one time, and they're going to spend at your place only one time, or in your mall only one time. So you want to attract them, and they're super open to offering some form of asymmetrical reward for that category of users. So Bitcoin payments as form of attracting tourist investment could be a good use case. And I'm just advancing this out. There's a lot of complexity associated with it as well. And finally, we should expect to see lots of more customer regulations, new fraud pattern, and a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt with this. We've been, there's been it's been a uphill battle launching this in Canada, facing regulators. Hopefully, we were blessed to have the support of the province of Quebec up here, that they supported us by giving us a grant. So it's pretty awesome that, a state, here it's called the province, but that they would support a Bitcoin initiative. So that shows that there's a lot of open mind also from the regulator standpoint. But we also had some other issues with other regulators that were asking us questions, and there was a lot of educations to be made. So that's something any businesses that aim to offer Bitcoin in the real world context outside of this online trading environment or tech environment will eventually have to answer. That concludes the presentation. Thank you very much for being here. It's been exciting. It's a pretty cool experience presenting to you here. I'm sorry I didn't face you. I was up facing that presentation. I don't still have a perfect control, of the environment right now. But so thank you. That concludes it.